Good afternoon and welcome again to DePauw University. Those of you who enroll today are members of the 169th class to enroll at DePauw. You are 614 new students from 34 states and 12 countries. 40 of you enroll in the School of Music and 554 enter the Asbury College of Liberal Arts. You bring a diversity of experiences and interests to energize the campus. We have been eagerly expecting you and glad you are here. This afternoon we will begin by having the head of the student government bring you greetings. Zach Pfister of the class of 2006 is the president of the student body. Zach is from Jasper, Indiana, and is majoring in conflict studies. Zach.
Good afternoon. As Dean Abrams said, my name is Zach Pfister, and I'm the Student Body President here at DePauw. I would again like to be one of the first to officially welcome you to campus. You have now entered an amazing new phase in your lives, college. You've all chosen DePauw for your undergraduate lives, a choice I can honestly guarantee you will not regret. The experiences you will walk away with after graduating are unlike any other experiences you will have in your lives. College is a time to explore. It is an opportunity for you to take classes you've never heard of, make lifelong friendships with a diverse group of people, and maybe even find the person you will marry. I know it's kind of scary, but believe me, these 4 years will fly by faster than you might think. Tonight, when you're getting settled in, many of you will no doubt congregate in your common areas, and you will find yourself sitting there for hours on end, talking about your high school years and experiences that you had then. You will relate with some people's backgrounds and be astonished at others. Soon, you will also discover the endless opportunities to get involved on campus. Whether it's athletics, service clubs, or student government, there's literally something for everyone. I urge you to become active and involved early and often. This is your experience, so you should make the most of it. Many of you will join Greek houses, and some of you will not. But whatever you do, you also remember that that is your decision. I'm supposed to be up here offering words of encouragement and inspiration. However, I'm not going to lie. These first few months will be an up and down roller coaster. College is hard. DePauw is hard. You will take some courses that you will regret. You might even have to pay a visit to the dean for having a party in your room. And you will definitely get one or two expensive parking tickets. But these things aren't the end of the world. The good experiences will certainly outweigh the overbearing stress that comes with college. Stress and college are a package deal, and you will soon find yourselves juggling more work and activities than you ever thought possible. But don't worry, you will adapt. And if you're having trouble with these things, that is what your mentors are for. Use them for advice, because they have now lived the college dream, and sadly, the end is closing in on them. So I guess if I could sum the DePauw experience up into one word, that word would be everlasting. You are here because you are among the best and the brightest. Use that potential to truly make something of yourselves here. Because once you walk off that stage 4 years from now, you will yearn to be back here for the rest of your lives. Welcome to DePauw. Thank you.
Thank you, Zach. And let me add to his words of welcome a few thoughts about the possibilities that face you. Just to make it a little daunting for a moment, DePauw has hundreds of faculty members. It's one of the ways we make sure you have small classes. And they offer nearly 1,000 courses. So imagine over your 4 years you will have to choose among 1,000 different possibilities, and you get about 30. How is it that you will put together an educated life with only a small fraction of the possibilities? Well, I think one of the answers from the start is we will help to set you on the journey, but we will not take you to its end. We will be with you through the experiences that you have here, but that there will be much more education to follow. And there will be things that will add to your education outside of class. Zach mentioned a few. Let me mention a few others. There will be speakers and visitors from around the world. There will be arts festivals There will be art exhibits, a performing arts series, athletic events, community service activities. There will be many things that you will do with each other, with the roughly 3,500 students that you will interact with at DePauw over your 4 years. Now let me turn to the weather, because that provides a useful metaphor, and you're all happy that you're out of the deep heat and humidity outside, and ask you to think about the following question. I hope you'll have these kinds of questions throughout your 4 years. So it's hot today, maybe close to the hottest day of the summer. Don't you remember sometime about the 20th of June celebrating or remembering, being reminded that the longest day of the year was happening in June? So didn't we get the most sunshine that we get in the year in June? Why is it hotter now? It is hotter now. So why is a good question. Well, maybe that'll encourage you to take a physics class or a chemistry class. What's the thermodynamics of the earth that causes the hotter days to come after the day that might get the most sunlight? Clearly, the earth is a complex system, and there's a little bit of lethargy in its temperature compared to the arrival of the thermal energy from the sun. Well, let that be a metaphor, because that's a fact, not a metaphor. Let that be a metaphor, however, for your education. That not all of the impact of what you will learn and experience will come right away. Some of it will come a little bit later. And I hope it comes in happier ways than perhaps it may feel when you're out there in the heat and humidity of today. And we'll hope we'll be done in time so that the 70% chance of thunderstorms doesn't come to pass before we leave this auditorium. Let me say a few other words of welcome with regard to what it is you are entering. What is a liberal education, anyway? What is a liberal arts institution? Well, I have found some inspiration on that subject from William Cronin, who wrote an article now 13 years ago, but it sticks well in describing what a liberal education is and what it is we hope you will become as liberally educated members of society. He says, in speaking of liberal education, we certainly do not mean an education that indoctrinates students with values of political liberalism, at least not in the obvious sense of the latter phrase. Rather, we use these words to describe an educational tradition that celebrates and nurtures human freedom. These days, liberal and liberty have become words so mired in controversy, embraced and reviled as they have been by the far ends of the political spectrum, that we scarcely know how to use them without turning them into slogans. That was 13 years ago, but seems rather current. He goes on, but they can hardly be separated from this educational tradition. Liberal derives from the Latin liberalis, meaning of or related to the liberal arts, which in turn derives from the Latin word liber, meaning free. But the word actually has much deeper roots, being akin to the Old English word leodon, meaning to grow, and leod, meaning people. It is also related to the Greek word eleutheros, meaning free, and goes all the way back to the Sanskrit word rodhati, meaning one climbs, one grows. Freedom and growth here surely are the values that lie at the very core of what we mean when we speak of liberal education. He offers 10 challenges for the liberally educated person. Measures by which we will know them. They listen and they hear. They read and they understand. They can talk with anyone. They can write clearly and persuasively and movingly. They can solve a wide variety of puzzles and problems. They respect rigor not so much for its own sake, but as a way of seeking truth. They practice humility, tolerance, and self-criticism. They understand how to get things done in the world. They nurture and empower the people around them. And they follow E.M. Forster's injunction from Howard's End, quote, only connect. More than anything else, being an educated person means being able to see the connections that allow one to make sense of the world and act within it in creative ways. This is the challenge you face, to become an educated person, and I hope you reach for this and more in your 4 years at DePauw. Only connect, meet new people, try new things, study new fields, visit new places, challenge yourself beyond what you think is possible. This is the challenge of a liberal education, and it will go on for a lifetime. Welcome. We are certainly glad you are here. It is now my pleasure to introduce to you the 18th president of DePauw University, Dr. Robert G. Bottoms. Dr. Bottoms is starting his 20th year as president of DePauw in an era when the average tenure of a college president is but a third of that. A native of Birmingham, Alabama, Dr. Bottoms earned his bachelor's degrees at Birmingham Southern College and Emory University, and his doctorate at Vanderbilt University. His career in higher education was launched when he was appointed chaplain and assistant to the president at Birmingham Southern. He later moved to the Vanderbilt Divinity School as assistant dean and assistant professor of church and ministry. In 1978, DePauw selected Dr. Bottoms as its vice president for university relations. He subsequently advanced to executive vice president for external relations, then executive vice president of the university, before being named president in 1986. Dr. Bottoms' previous years at DePauw provided the new president unique, in-depth insights into the life of the university community. These guided him to establish immediately 3 key goals, which have been hallmarks for his administration: increasing and sustaining campus diversity, improving science education, and advancing moral reflection. In the intervening years, one of Dr. Bottoms' most significant achievements has been making DePauw's faculty, staff, and student body more diverse. He is fully committed to developing a community that embraces geographic, socioeconomic, and racial diversity as DePauw students prepare for lives that will be rich in international and multicultural experiences. Under his leadership, DePauw has also strengthened its science programs, including construction and renovation of our 3 science buildings, the launching of a vibrant Department of Computer Science and 2 interdisciplinary science majors in biochemistry and environmental geoscience, and cutting-edge science and technology programming highlighted by the campus-wide information technology initiatives, which include growing use of GIS systems and mapping techniques, underwritten in part by a grant from Lilly Endowment, a program overall known as 361 Degrees. Through his vision and leadership, DePauw recently tripled its campus acreage with the acquisition of nearly 481 acres of a nature park for scientific field research, recreation, and reflection. The creative and performing arts have flourished as well, with magnificent facilities for teaching, creating, and displaying visual art that will be enriched with the opening this fall of the expanded and refurbished Emerson Museum of Art, with the creation of one of the strongest creative writing programs in a liberal arts college, a vibrant theater program, and all these which complement DePauw's unique School of Music. In a few weeks, we will launch the preparatory work. It'll be evident because there'll be some digging, moving underground utilities and such, with an eye to a project now in the planning stages to expand and refurbish this building, the Performing Arts Center, to better serve music, theater, and dance, as well as the communication and film studies programs. Due to Dr. Bottoms' continuing efforts, moral reflection has been more fully integrated into the classroom and into the life of the community. This is perhaps best demonstrated by the April 2003 symposium, Political Education in the Modern University, hosted by DePauw and sponsored by the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation. This event gave students, faculty members, and staff an opportunity to interact with some of the nation's leading thinkers about the role of colleges and universities in the preparation of future citizens. The resources from that symposium will inform campus discussions for many years to come. We now also have an endowed visiting professorship in ethics, thanks to the generosity of a trustee who has worked with Dr. Bottoms for his entire career here. Dr. Bottoms has led 2 fundraising campaigns which have brought resources to strengthen DePauw. As a result, we have hired additional faculty members, reduced the student-faculty ratio and the average class size, constructed new state-of-the-art buildings and renovated existing structures, added innovative programs, and gained recognition as a leading national liberal arts college. Dr. Bottoms has served as a member and leader of numerous educational and volunteer organizations, including the National Association of Independent Colleges and Universities Task Force on Public Relations for Private Colleges, the Council of the National Collegiate Athletic Association, the National Association of Schools and Colleges of the United Methodist Church, the Methodist Senate of the United Methodist Church, the accrediting agency for the Board of Higher Education and Ministry, the American Center for International Leadership, and the governing board of the National Council of Churches, the Center for Leadership Development in Indianapolis. He currently serves with the boards of Posse Foundation, the Joyce Foundation, Seabury Western Theological Seminary, Women in Government, and the Vanderbilt University Alumni Association. In addition, Dr. Bottoms has been a consultant to the Lilly Endowment, the Arthur Vining Davis Foundations, and the Fund for Theological Education. He was a guest speaker this summer at Chautauqua on diversity in higher education. He has written articles and opinion pieces for the New York Times, the Indianapolis Star, and the Chicago Tribune. It is fair to say that the excellence of DePauw today is thanks to his leadership. Dr. Bottoms.
Well, your first day on the college campus as a student. Your first day. But in a more general sense, for those of us on the stage, we have spent literally years getting ready for your arrival. Before you came, the alumni built this campus with their gifts, and the people on the stage, over 200 faculty in number, one of them for every 10 students. And I just played with some figures, thinking about some way to measure the wisdom and the educational value of the people on the stage. Together, collectively, they've spent over 5,000 years of formal education. Remember, I said the word collectively. And collectively, our faculty has literally spent centuries teaching students. So we are ready for your first day. We're ready for our adventure to begin together. As Neal mentioned, I've been president for a long time. Perhaps the way a first-year student might think of it, I would tell you, I am aware what you've already figured out. I was president of DePauw before you were born. So I've had some practice giving talks at the opening academic convocation. And there's usually some similarity among these talks, I hope, with you about some of the things we want most for you. And I frequently said in the past, while this is your first day, my mind can flash forward after your 4 years is completed, and I'll tell you a little what it'll be like. Gwen and I will have a reception for you and your parents at our house on the day before commencement. If you are like other classes, you will come through with your parents. They will be very proud of your success at DePauw, and you will say, "These have been among the best years of my life." At your commencement, I will wish you success, whether you're going to graduate school or into your first job. These are the things we want for you. Rather optimistic. But in fewer years than you can count on the number of fingers on one hand, the world has changed dramatically. If you reflect upon your first 18 years of life, I know you've had ups and downs, but really they have been relatively easy. While the world has not been tranquil, the United States has been kind of like an island. And in the last 18 years, we as a population have experienced very little hardship. But then in New York City on 9/11, we experienced what we had never known before in our lives. We experienced vulnerability. The same vulnerability experienced with terrorist attacks on other countries, like Spain and Egypt, and twice in London. And if you were like I am, when you read the predictions that there may yet be another attack in the United States, this time perhaps with gasoline trucks, we shudder. The war may seem very distant to you. Terrorism may seem very distant to you, unless, of course, you had a friend or a relative in New York on that day, or a friend who has served in the armed forces in Afghanistan or Iraq. But a sober analysis of our time tells us that terrorism and war may define your generation. I don't think I've ever said that to an entering class before. And it will take a lot of cooperation from a lot of countries for the world to be anything but hostile to your hopes and your dreams. The art of international cooperation must be recovered if we are to live in peace. And so I want to think with you a bit this afternoon about learning how to cooperate. But before I do, we'll also need to learn to cooperate on another front, the environmental issues facing our world. I told the faculty yesterday in my opening address to them on the state of the university that in the 1850s, while Darwin concluded the origin of the species and his work, his research, the rate of the extinction of a species was 1 in every 5 years. Today, the rate of extinction is 1 in every 9 minutes. That would be 3 species eradicated since we've been in this room. Some of us are familiar with the wisdom literature of the Old Testament. There's a passage in Ecclesiastes. One generation passes away, another generation comes, but the earth abides forever. Now there are some environmental prophets who suggest to us that human extinction is possible. And if the environment is destroyed, what will kill it? We will. It will die of suicide. Jack Miles, who works for the J. Paul Getty Trust in California, wrote a piece called Global Requiem, in which he was sharing his concern for the environment and his depression as he realized as a young boy growing up in Michigan in his visits to Lake Michigan, as an adult coming to the realization that Lake Michigan was dying faster than he was. If indeed the prophets are correct and the environment is ruined for future generations, it will come because we have an accumulation of ignored warnings from scientists and a consensus that the opportunity to save our precious environment has come and gone. This is not the planet we were born on. And it will take global cooperation of many governments across many cultures to correct all of our accumulated past errors. Another need for cooperation. Lee Hamilton, a very famous DePauw graduate, served in the House of Representatives for decades, was co-chair of the 9/11 convention, has been a frequent visitor on campus, put very well in an editorial in the Indianapolis Star just this past week what I'm trying to say as he wrote about the spirit of cooperation we need. He said, how can we live in the 21st century? By using U.S. power to build consensus and cooperation, by seeing China and India as partners, by facing the common threats like drug production, terrorism, weapons proliferation, and environmental decay. And then he said these words, wrote these words: we in the United States have the power to act alone, but it costs international legitimacy, may turn the world against us. He recalled the words of our president when President Bush said, we don't need the world's permission to act. But then Mr. Hamilton added, but we do need the world's permission to succeed. Now, you're probably already thinking you're sorry you came in here. You came happy. And I've mentioned two very heavy issues. But this is a world we all face. And one of the challenges of your DePauw education will be whether you'll be personally touched by these problems and other problems of society that so badly need to be solved, and whether you will use your time to prepare yourselves as young citizens leaving DePauw in 4 years to address these issues. And my thought for the afternoon is that nothing will help you more as a student than preparing and nurturing to learn the skill of cooperation. Like your class, well, your class is like all the other classes before you. I've always wanted things for you. I want it to be the most challenging educational experience you've had in your 18 years. But I also want you to learn the importance of the art of cooperation. To learn to live cooperatively in a small global community, we offer you the opportunity to learn to experience diversity. And what I mean by diversity is how we develop the skill to engage people and work with people from all across the world and within our country, from different backgrounds and perspectives. Dr. Abram mentioned there are a lot of differences represented in your class. There are many differences represented in our faculty. We have tried our best before you arrived to create a laboratory. The way I would describe your class in terms of difference or diversity is this. You are Asian, you are Caucasian, you are African American, you are Latino, you are Indian. Some of you come from wealthy homes. Some of you would say you come from middle-class homes. 21% of you are the first people in your family, just like I was the person in my family to go to college. As has already been mentioned, you come from 34 different states and 11 different countries. You bring with you the gifts, if you use them, to help us create this laboratory where we can learn to cooperate. And this cooperation can transcend the ethnicity in our classes, gender, economic background, and geographic diversity. If we learn to cooperate, learn to learn from difference. DePauw brings many implications for your 4 years here. Diversity brings implications for your 4 years here. So after all, what does this mean? How do you use our diversity in this community to develop skills of cooperation? Well, there are some things we will help you do. If you will work with us, the faculty on our stage, you will be able to master languages of other countries. If you do well in class and you can form an image of why you would benefit from studying abroad, you'll be able to do that, or to travel overseas during our winter term. But you don't even have to leave campus, is the good thing about our class and our faculty, to engage people who are very different from yourselves, other students and faculty members. And so one trait I hope you will cultivate at DePauw is this: learning to cooperate with people who may come from a different background. It's a skill you need, and it's a skill society needs. The second avenue of cooperation is in the use of technology. Again, I would say to you, I spoke to the faculty yesterday, and one of the things we talked about was Thomas Friedman's book, The World is Flat. I heard the tape of Tom Friedman talking to the Governor's Conference this past July, and he made some of the following statements that do show how technology has changed the world in just the past few years. Mr. Friedman said 30 years ago, a B student in Boston had just about the same level of opportunity that a genius would have from Beijing. But then he goes on to say it's not true anymore. Technology has changed that. We all live in one community. Most of the people in this room realize you've read in the paper or seen on television evidence of American designers sitting down via technology with Indian software writers and Asian manufacturers all at once, and nobody has to travel anywhere. Technology has drawn us all together in one small community. Well, you come as the first class with our so-called laptop initiative. But Mr. Friedman would remind you, as he did the governors, that as you come to class with your laptops, making use of the internet, learning that Google can be a verb, may make you resourceful, may put information at your fingertips. But there are some things about a liberal education that even technology has not changed. Technology cannot download your passion for knowledge, grant you the imagination to address some of the crises that you will face, or the creativity to find fulfillment in life. Even though technology allows us to cross international boundaries, to make the world so very small, even without travel, we are still required not to download, but to upload in some very traditional ways. Reading the wisdom of the past. Fortunately, you don't have to start all over in your quest to address life's most interesting issues. You will find wise voices in your classrooms through the faculty. You will find wise voices in the library, in the books of your syllabuses, the syllabi that you will be given. Another thing we hope you learn to, in technological terms, upload, is to refine your writing skills so that when you do have a good idea, you're able to communicate it. Technology will not upload your travel to experience other cultures, or even the reflection time I hope you take. One of the things you'll discover about DePauw that's perhaps a little sad is this. You will be tempted to become so busy. We have so many organizations. Neal mentioned so many courses, so many faculty, that you will have to discipline yourself to spend some time at the nature park, finding a place of solitude, to spend some time somewhere else on campus, just stopping to think, stepping back and saying, what does all this mean, and how can all these resources be harnessed to take me where I want to go? The third thing I want to say about cooperation is this. You know, there's a very old-fashioned sense in which cooperation requires honesty. If we're going to live in community together, if we're going to cooperate, we have to trust one another to tell the truth. Our students in the past few years have thought a lot about this, and you see the covenant printed in your program. As you go through your mentor groups, you'll talk a lot about academic integrity, respecting one another, and not tolerating injustices or abuse against yourself or anyone else. We have to be honest if we are to tell, if we're to cooperate. We have to be able to trust one another. So I want to address an issue that may be on the minds of the parents. It's certainly on the mind of every college president. Most college campuses in this country, if they are candid with themselves, have experienced some problem of alcohol abuse among their students. We work hard in what we call the responsible community not to have alcohol abuse on our campus. But in thinking about what I would say to you, and I hope you won't think this is too simple-minded, I have a perfect solution to alcohol abuse on campus. I have two requests. The first thing I would ask of every parent in the room, before you leave today, ask your son or your daughter if they will, in their 4 years at DePauw, be good. If they can promise you as a parent they would not abuse alcohol. Well, now the students are already on the spot because you don't want to lie to your parents, do you? And so when you answer in the affirmative, we can go a long way toward creating a better community. If you would just remember that promise and realize and hope that you are telling the truth. We have to do it to live cooperatively. In closing, let me just share 3 brief snippets. Warren Bennis, who's written a great deal of material on leadership, came out with a book late last spring called Geeks and Geezers. My generation, the geezers, your generation, the geeks. And the book was a study he had done of people who had assumed major leadership positions in society. And what he discovered was every leader, young or old, had generally had in their lives one intense transformational experience. And the majority of those transformational experiences were with a mentor relationship with a teacher, a faculty member. This is what we offer you: the opportunity to have relationships with educated faculty who are passionate about their disciplines, who are willing to share with you in what could be, if you give them the opportunity, an intense transformational experience. Second snippet. We do a lot of work in small groups here. I mentioned honesty. I mentioned making use of diversity and of technology. Another thing we do, we make a lot of use of teaching you how to work in small groups. There was a famous sociologist who one day sat here in a first-year convocation, not in this room because it was many, many years ago, as a first-year student at DePauw. Margaret Mead wrote the following about the value of small groups, even in a world like the treacherous one I described. She said, "Never doubt that small groups of committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, that's the only thing that ever has." Third snippet. Eric Slosser was our commencement speaker last spring. In his address to the graduating class, he referenced Tom Brokaw's book, The Greatest Generation. And paraphrasing what he said to them, let me say to you, even with all the problems I have tried to describe briefly, if you learn the skills of cooperation, if you use your 4 years here to help develop the character of an honest person, your class could be part of the next great generation. Thank you.
As we are about to conclude, let me offer a few instructions. This is your first test. After the singing of the toast to DePauw, as the faculty leaves, Those of you who are students about to go meet with your faculty advisors, first-year seminar teachers, should make sure that your parents have the room number where they should find you afterwards. And then we ask that all the other family members wait in their seats while the students leave first so they can get to their meetings. There are meetings for parents and family members here in this building afterwards, and I'll remind you where they are. It's detailed in the insert in your programs. But so remember that instruction. I now call on Dr. Stanley Irwin, Professor of Music, who will lead us in the toast to Old DePauw.